Oh, this could be an opening. The man didn't want to have the opening. It's Lauren Shetland. That is the moment. The moment of matters.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Hearts on Sleeves podcast, the podcast where we talk about Heart of Midlothian Football Club, its fans, and all the ups and downs that we experience both on and off the pitch. Today I'm joined again by Adam, and this time we've got his brother John. How are you doing, John, and how has the season been for you so far?
Yeah, I'm great. Good to finally be here. It's taken a while, but finally turned up. Yeah, I think the season's actually been really positive. Obviously, I've said to both of you that I wasn't fully convinced by McInnes and the appointment, but I think the way we've been playing and the way he's talking has really won me over. I've really enjoyed the pre-season and League Cup games.
And we were all at the Sunderland game, the testimonial for Craig Gordon. So that will be the first game that we'll cover. We'll also touch on the closed door friendly against Dundee with a couple of bits of information that will probably relate to the Aberdeen game, which of course we'll preview. And we'll also have a look at some comings and goings and what potential ones we might still like to see in the squad. So Craig Gordon's testimonial against Sunderland. When I came in through Dalry and Gorgie, there was just a sea of red, white and maroon. The Sunderland fans had come in their literal thousands. As saying to Adam beforehand, hopefully we can just nip in for a wee drink before the game. Absolutely no chance. The pubs were just overflowing with Sunderland fans who are clearly in celebratory mood, and no wonder why, just having been promoted into the Premier League. It was a good atmosphere. It was a really good atmosphere coming into the stadium itself. Sunderland fans in full voice, but not for long, and we'll come on to that later. As we headed in, took our seats, we had a look at the squad, and the lineup for the game was as follows. It was Craig Gordon, of course, starting in goals. And it's a back three. Finlay, Halkett and Kent. On the left wing we had Milne, and on the right was Forrester. In midfield was a trio of Devlin, Nieuwenhof, McEntee. Up front there was Shankland and Braga. Looking at the squad itself, obviously I was really glad to see that Craig Gordon was able to start and get at least some time on the pitch for his testimonial. I guess the one sort of odd one out was Forrester. I know he's just not really had any minutes for McInnes. I wasn't hugely concerned, even though it was Premiership opposition, I wasn't hugely concerned about him being there because that back three is a really strong one, I think. What was your thoughts on Adam?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're performing so well and the rest of the starting lineup is so strong that having someone like Forrester in is a lot easier. I think it's a lot easier for him in a team that's doing well, and I think the defence looks excellent at the moment. Especially Finlay and Halkett and Milne. I think in particular have had a really good start to the season. So yeah, Forrester being there certainly wasn't a big concern for me, and I think we're getting not too far away from the kind of lineup we might start seeing, once the league season starts as well.
And you talked about last week, Adam, about players perhaps getting rewarded for their performances in these League Cup games that we're doing. And I think a good example of that would be Nieuwenhof starting again. One of those ones, we said it before, we didn't really picture in the squad, but came on, and for the 20 minutes he was on, I think he did particularly well yet again. So it kicked off then at 3 o'clock. Big round of applause and a guard of honour beforehand welcoming Craig Gordon. A fantastic reception for him and well deserved. From kick-off is kicked right back to Craig Gordon, and there's a pretty typical Gordon ball straight out into the dugouts. But of course this was on purpose and he was substituted pretty much straight away. the medical team said he just wasn't ready to effectively play any minutes whatsoever. But it was great for him just to come on and get that big round of applause. The first 10 minutes then, I think it was pretty even stuff. Sunderland, for me, had the slight upper hand of it. They were passing about, and it was almost like we were standing back a wee bit, stepping back just to try and figure out their game plan. But then everything changed in the 11th minute. McEntee found Braga, although it did deflect off one of the Sunderland players. Braga, in exactly the right place needed to be, headed it in. The Sunderland fans were completely silenced, and the Hearts fans were jubilant. What did you think of that one, John?
Yeah, it was a great moment, to be honest. I thought the whole sort of move, McEntee worked so hard to win the ball back. Quick 1-2 with Shankland. But I thought that the most sort of impressive thing for me, and I've seen this in a few of the games so far, is Braga's movement. Like, he just peels off the defenders so well. He knows exactly where he should be. And that's why he's been scoring these goals. And I mean, it's another great header from him. And
we also talked in the last podcast about how McInnes might be approaching this game. I saw on social media some people saying, "Come on, guys, it'll just be minutes in the legs for the players. There's nothing really going to be to play for. It'll be a testimonial. It'll just be a bit of a kickabout." But none of us took that stance last week, and I think 10 minutes we could all see exactly what McInnes' stance was. We got the goal, and from then on we kind of never really let up, really getting into tackles. What did you think was the energy? What did you think of the energy and the pressing that you saw from that Hearts team, Adam?
Yeah, I think it was really an example of one of the things McInnes has brought to us so far. It was a friendly, but we certainly approached it like it was a competitive match. And I think we were just fighting for absolutely everything. We were getting completely stuck in. I think Sunderland and their fans were maybe taken back a bit by the fact that, we were treating it so seriously. And it was brilliant to see us approach a match like that, with just such intensity. And I really think that is one of the big things we've seen from McInnes so far, is just the kind of work rate and the attitude of the players. It was brilliant. Like, it was just one of those ones. It was the type of performance, I think, that just gets the fans behind the team. So even if we weren't winning, I think when we perform like that and put in that level of kind of effort and physicality, that's the kind of thing that gets the Hearts fans behind the team.
I really think that after that goal and the high press and the energy that came with it afterwards, Sunderland looked a bit like they had the stuffing knocked out of them. We didn't really know what to do with it, and the fans, they began slowly from their standing up, singing positions to sitting down with their arms folded. McInnes set us up in a way not just to effectively tame the Premier League team, but also to silence their fans, and that's exactly what we did. John, you mentioned just you're really impressed with the vision of Braga. Another thing that I noticed by him that I really liked was around the 14th minute. This is again something I don't think we've really had in our team. There was a through ball played to him, but he was on a hiding to nothing, basically. But he still managed to get a free kick out of it. He's just a clever player, not just with his finishing, not just with his positioning, but just be able to create moments like that. He did also have a shot after that, but it was pretty tame. However, again, it was a good sign of the Hearts team willingness to just get shots off whenever they could. Unfortunately, Hoff got injured in the 20th minute. He walked off, which is good, and Spittle replaced him. There was moments in this game where I thought Halkett did an excellent job as just your classic sweeper, which he seemed to be playing. And there was a point around the 25th minute where the ball was played out right and found one of the Sunderland players. Halkett looked like he hesitated. I remember saying this to you, Adam. He just timed his tackle perfectly. Another good example of this from a defensive point was Finlay later on in the game. He looked like he's being outpaced by the Sunderland winger, the right winger, I think it was, and he still managed to get the ball. I've no idea how he did it, but this is just is so encouraging to see. I do sort of want to add a couple of caveats before we go on and talk about this. I know we're singing the praises of his Hearts team, and I just want to, I do fully appreciate this was a friendly they were doing. It was a testimonial, and Sunderland, I spoke to a Sunderland fan after the game, and he said they're probably about 4 players off full strength, but they were still playing with a team. So that starting lineup they had 4 players worth 20 million, and their starting lineup was roundabout worth, give or take, 100 million just from that starting lineup. And later on in the second half, they're able to bring on Diarra, who's worth 30 million. I do understand that we're well ahead in our preparations for the season than they are, and that showed in the energy levels. But I suppose I'm caveating those caveats by saying this was a really strong team we were up against, and we were winning individual battles, which I don't think energy levels really come into in a certain sense. So it was just a hugely encouraging performance, and I think no one exemplified this more than McEntee in the middle of a pitch, giving some really full-blooded tackles. As a half-time whistle went, John, what was your feelings just on that first half then, and who kind of stood out for you in that first half other than Braga?
Yeah, I've got to agree with you with McEntee. I didn't realise how quick he was. Like, I didn't notice that in the sort of League Cup games, but he actually looks like he got a bit of speed on him, which is always useful. To be honest, I'm quite glad that we went into the game like that, because I think the team that they have, although they're obviously at the start of their season, I think that's probably the closest we'll get to Rangers or Celtic in this league. And obviously, if we want to be beating them, we're going to have to prove we can do it against teams at that level. So yeah, I'm really, really happy that we went into it. And like you said, we just went for everything. It was kind of like, like playing the Old Firm or Aberdeen or Hibs, where, almost every tackle you're like, is getting you up for the game. So it's definitely
Totally.
different.
And, I really liked that pairing of McEntee and Devlin in the midfield. And Unoff, again, like I say, he looked decent in that role until he had to go off. Spittle, I thought, played pretty well as well. What did you think of that pairing of Devlin and McEntee? I thought Devlin had an excellent game as well. And then, he got man of a match pretty deservedly so. But again, just those energy levels are someone else, weren't they?
Absolutely. I think he does a lot of the sort of dirty work, that allows the players around him to play better, which is why I've quite enjoyed, when he's had someone like, Hoff next to him, who is much better linking up play. Devlin will just run around, win the ball, do a wee 2-yard pass to Hoff, and then he'll play the next pass. It works quite well.
Substitutions at half time then, Adam. Wilson, Steinvender came on, Braga and Kent went off. What was your thoughts about the second half then? What were you hoping to see, and what were your general feelings as we went into this?
Well, I think my main hope was it wasn't going to be like a typical friendly where you make lots of changes in the second half and then everything kind of falls apart and it becomes a bit flat. And I was hoping, obviously, we could push on and get more goals. And I think, again, the way we treated the match was even with making a number of changes, it still felt like a more serious match. And I think what John was saying about it felt a bit like we were playing the Old Firm, Hibs. I think we still managed to maintain that intensity even with all those subs. And I think just changing the topic slightly, I don't want to talk about last season too much, but another massive thing this season is so far is like the number of matches obviously we've had League Cup games, but on top of that, the number of matches we've played overall, the kind of intensity of the training, the preseason in general is just in stark contrast to last season, where not only did we have like disappointing defeats against Fleetwood, but it felt like we didn't really play many matches and we didn't really treat it in the right way. And I think the second half of this match, even with those subs, for us still to have that level of performance and for it to really feel like we were going out there to win as much as possible, just all of it so far is really giving me optimism for how we're going to approach matches in general, I think, in the league.
Yeah, and I think one of my slight concerns, I mean, I've been thoroughly impressed with pretty much every performance we've had, but I do think we've been sometimes a bit slow coming into the second half in some games. But I don't think that really was the case at all in the second half. Milne impressed throughout, and in the 54th minute, he managed to draw a foul on the edge of the box, but the free kick was quite poor from Spittle. And in the 60th minute, we had a golden opportunity to put ourselves 2 to the good, mix up between two Sunderland players. Wilson threw on goal, keeper saves it. I do think, to give Wilson his dues here, it was actually a bit of a difficult angle to get it. It's a part of his game that he does need to work on, but he's still young and he's getting those opportunities. He's seeing those moments. So yeah, it was a good bit of vision from him. Sadly, end product wasn't there, but that's something hopefully McInnes can help him work on. 2 minutes later, though, we got that goal, and yet another goal from a set piece. John, what did you think about this goal? What were your thoughts?
It was a great bit of play, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it, actually, when we're sort of setting up for the corner, which I mean is probably a good sign if if it's not obvious. But yeah, it just worked really well, and I do think Shanklin slightly scuffs the shot, but he's got enough on it that, you know, if you hit into that area, there's a chance of it going in. And I'm actually been glad he scored as well. You know, it's good seeing him get some goals after a tough season last year.
I think that might be the first goal we've scored from outside the box so far in all our games, certainly in the ones that weren't behind closed doors. Forrester came off after that for Kizaridis. Now, I'm making sure to get that name correct because Adam said he spoke to his Greek friend and it's pronounced Kizaridis rather than Kyriadis. Is that correct, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, some people are dropping the Z, but apparently the Z definitely gets pronounced.
Fine. So, apologies to all our Greek listeners, which I'm sure are in their hundreds, if not thousands. By this point, that you could already see a few Sunderland fans heading out, and even more of them went filing out when there was a mix-up yet again. Well, not mix-up. There was a pass back straight across goal, which Kizaridis, the substitute, pounced on and made it 3. As interesting as watching them play Hull, or as watching some highlights of Sunderland versus Hull, and in that game they also gave away a goal from a bad pass across goal. That's something they've got to work on, but that's not our concern. 3-0 it was, and it's great to see Kizaridis score another one, and that was effectively game over. Craig Gordon gave a heartfelt speech at the end. What was your overall thoughts then on the game, Adam?
I think going into the game there was a little bit of nerves in terms of we had this feel good start to the season with the League Cup matches, and I think there was a little bit of nerves. Maybe we're going to come up against, you know, a team that's worth so much more money, and maybe you don't get the result, and it kind of takes away a bit of the feeling so far. And whilst Sunderland are obviously a little bit behind us, I mean, I think they are behind us, but the bottom line is they've got a team worth absolutely millions of pounds, and you know, in previous seasons, I don't think we would have been able to get a result like that. So I just, again, I think with every game so far, I've come away really happy. I mean, even the final goal, it was a mistake by Sunderland, but Kizaridis, if you watch him, he kind of moves, his movement to even anticipate the ball coming to him is excellent. And yeah, the depth of the squad, and I think there's just so many positives with the signings. I think it just sort of backed up everything we'd felt so far. But in particular, this one, I just felt the physicality and the intensity stepped up a notch, and I think because that's what we needed to do against a bigger team than the previous opposition. So it kind of continued the levels of optimism, I'd say, maybe even increased them a bit as well, actually.
And after the game, after full-time whistle went, what friendly did you say it reminded you of?
Well, I brought up the Middlesbrough, the famous Middlesbrough 2005 friendly. The Middlesbrough one was slightly different because I think it was in some ways kind of the first look at some of the players for at least at home. Whereas this one, obviously, we've seen them already like 4 times. But the levels of excitement in that, it's not often I go to friendlies, and they're not particularly exciting or interesting. So in terms of like optimism and coming out of a match thinking this could be a really good season, I think this game was up there in terms of just the way we approached it and everything. Not that I think we're going to win the first 8 games and sack our manager after 10 games or whatever, but I do think, there's not many times, like I said, I go to a friendly and I'm like buzzing like that. I can't think of many times I've come out of a friendly or just seen the fans get behind the team quite so well in a non-competitive game.
I think the last time I felt any sort of excitement in the friendly was when we scored against Barcelona all those years ago.
Definitely.
But there was just such a good energy. And yeah, look, Sunderland, they didn't have anything to play for, and neither did we. But putting the result, we'll just put the result to the side. Even then, you could just see the energy, the desire. These are all things we want to see. And those, like I said earlier, the battles in the air, winning the ball in difficult positions, timing tackles well, we were seeing all of that. So even if we'd lost 2-0, I think we still would have come away from that pretty happy. John, who was your man of the match and what were your thoughts on the game as a whole?
So man of the match, McEntee. I think he was everywhere, and obviously I picked him up already, but yeah, I just thought he was great all round. But I'd probably give a big shout out to Milne as well. I thought he was maybe a little bit quiet in the first half, but I felt like in the second half he got like a second wind, and he was just down that left hand side. He was chasing everything. He was flying into every tackle, and he was winning them. I actually thought his crossing was quite good as well, which is something that obviously with Penrice leaving, I thought Penrice wasn't particularly the best defensively, but he obviously gave us so much going forward. And I thought Milne was the opposite, where solid defensively, but maybe wouldn't have such a big sort of output going forward. But I thought he really, over the whole pre-season and League Cup, especially against Sunderland, I thought his actual crosses, his passing was really good. So I'd say that impressed me. And Joe Forrester as well. I actually think he was pretty solid against the guy who's worth 25 million. Don't think he really looked out of place.
Yeah, I think it's only fair we give a bit of a shout out to Forrester. He's come in for some flack over the last season, and unfairly. He's still a young player. We want to have young players from our academy coming through, and he really got what he deserved, which was a game against a huge Premier League team, and a performance befitting of that. I think also the other thing that I noticed, like so, we did mention that Devlin got man of the match, and he was as Devlin as I've ever seen Devlin. He was, biting into tackles, charging about the place, and again showing that real desire to become more of an attacking player. One thing also really liked the look of, that Shanklin just had that confidence. He could do moments where he'd backheel the ball, try and do sort of no-look passes, play the through ball that people weren't expecting. He's just playing like a man. He's no longer under the pressure of being sole goal source. And I just think he completely withered under that pressure. We can look at other aspects last season that played into what a poor season it was for us. But people who were hoping we would step up, such as Vargas, weren't able to do so last season. So Shankland having players around him who have clearly got ability to score a goal and just ability to create plays, he looks back to his confident, chilled out self And it was really great to see that as well, I felt. I also want to mention that Hearts had today a closed door game against Dundee. So there's a slight report about that. It finished 2-2, and some players that really didn't get much in the way of minutes, such as Jan Danda. Forrester got some more minutes as well. Khartoum and Drame, they all got some game time. Also playing this game were two youth players who are both going out on loan. Sandilands, who's the B team captain, and Kenzie Nair, who's away to League Two as part of the cooperation agreement that has just been announced this week. The goal scorers, by the way, were Jan Danda and Kizaridis yet again. Good to see some extra minutes to players who weren't getting them. Not much to really can be taken from the game, but it was good to have that, and hopefully that'll mean that we've still got the energy levels going into the Aberdeen game. Earlier on this week, I set a challenge for the boys, the predictions for the season. Now, in this, I want to hear from them what their prediction of Hearts will finish in the league and any silverware that might pick up, what their signing of the season they think will be, the most improved player under McInnes. So that has to be a player that was already part of squad. And then after that, I'd like a wild card prediction from the boys as well. So I'm going to start with yourself, John. What is, first of all, your thoughts on where Hearts is going to finish, and do you think we will get any silverware this season?
So I've obviously gone for us in third. I feel like you have to. That's what we should be aspiring for. I think McInnes has been very, vocal about that being the target as well. As far as silverware goes, I think we might win the League Cup this year. I feel like it's been, been so long, and we've clearly been taking it quite serious with the group stage games. So, yeah, I think it might be the year for that.
I think that could double up as your wild card prediction, quite honestly. It's, I mean, I want to be able to predict the League Cup, but I'm jumping the gun here a wee bit, but just I can't bring myself to it. It seems too much of a pipe dream. Who do you think is going to be our main competitors for third then?
I mean, I hate saying it, but I think it will be Hibs. I feel like I think the recruitment's been decent from what I've seen. I've not usually you're looking at their players and they're signing some random non-league England striker who's like 30, scored like one goal in 10 years. But yeah, I think they've done all right with their business. I think Aberdeen might struggle a little bit more. I think if they have a wee bad run, then yeah, they'll fall off a little bit. And I think it'll be between the two of us.
I actually think that, now here's my bold prediction, which will be recorded and played back to me by Aberdeen fans at the end of the season, I'm sure. And it's also a bit of a ballsy prediction to make ahead of the game they're going to play. But I think come the end of the season, the discussions won't be for will Aberdeen manage to get third. It's more likely to be will Aberdeen get top six. Now, this isn't just because I think Aberdeen are necessarily a poor team, although clearly didn't finish the season particularly well apart from the Scottish Cup. But I also think it's because there's other teams around them, such as Hibs and even St Mirren, who've got managers in place who understand the Scottish game, who can grind out a result and not just have to rely on a good run of form. What's your thinkings, Adam? Have I got that way wrong, or do you agree with me?
No, I was going to say something really similar. I mean, first of all, I agree with John, unfortunately, that it's going to be Hibs. I mean, that are our main competitors. I think I'd love to say that they're going to get bottom six or something. They did have a terrible start last season. I think David Gray is still not entirely proven. We've seen Naismith have a great season and then things collapse. But at the moment, I think we're looking at Hibs as the main competitors. I think I can't see. I wouldn't be predicting Aberdeen for fifth at the moment. I think they'll be. I could see sixth or seventh, to be honest. I think, again, really strange season for them last year. I know they ended up winning the cup, but their form was all over the place. So, yeah, I could see Aberdeen struggling this year. I hope it's Hibs that struggle as well, but yeah, I think we shouldn't be allowed to actually predict Hibs in fourth place on a Hearts podcast. But that's just we're being a bit too nice, you know. We need Trunter on here to put them in 12th place or something.
You'd put them in 13th after a couple of drinks, probably, but it's difficult to predict anything other than obviously a Rangers Celtic top two, and yeah, the smart money says that Celtic will do the usual and get first place. I do think Rangers are another one that are going to be. I mean, you could say this about Rangers every year. They're a difficult one to predict. You look at their team, and even though they played well against Panathinaikos, there's still quite a bit of youth in that team and a bit few unknowns. And whilst Celtic are bringing in, they've actually brought in about 6 or 7 players now. You feel they are really just building up strength, and obviously Tierney's back. He's here to try and take some lessons off Milne. But yeah, other than that, I think they're kind of he was the obvious one that's come in to really strengthen it, where it feels more like depth and strength for the rest of the team. They've got a team there that I think will romp to first, but you never know. Third, yep, I agree. I think that'll be us. Fourth, fifth, I genuinely think that it could be St Mirren battling it out with Dundee United. I'd be interested to see how it goes. I do think Aberdeen could surprise us. I did like a couple of. I watched their game the other day against Ipswich, I think it was. Yeah, they lost 3-1. But I did like look a couple of their players, and they've got one of the best right backs going as well, Aberdeen. So you do never know. Relegation. Who are we thinking for?
Dundee.
Yeah,
I think that's the. I think
clean
that's
sweep there.
I think that's everybody going for Dundee at the moment because, you know, Presley's not got a brilliant record and it hasn't been a great League Cup campaign.
They've lost a lot of players as well, have they not? They've
They
lost
have,
quite
yeah.
a few.
Drew 2-2 with Hearts today, though, I heard. So, but yeah, you're spot on, John. They've lost effectively. I mean, they started losing some of their best players last season, and all the best players of last season have now gone this season. So they're going to have to do some seriously impressive recruitment, really, to not find themselves at the bottom. You can also look at potentially Livingston and Falkirk. It's the obvious ones, the ones that are coming up. But again, Motherwell are one that I'm just not sure about. They've got the new manager in. They're about to lose their best player, you'd have to imagine. And again, you'd expect you're going to get quite a decent fee for Lennon Miller. And it'll be interesting to see how they invest that. But I think Dundee will really struggle this season unless they do invest well over the coming few weeks.
I think they were linked with Ronan Hale from Ross County today, though, which, I mean, could give them a bit of a boost if they've got him up front. You know, he does know how to score in the Premier League.
I think he'd be a very sensible one for them to bring in.
I also agree with you about Motherwell. I think outside of Dundee and the promoted teams, I can see Motherwell struggling as well. I can kind of see Falkirk. I kind of hope Falkirk have a decent season with John McGlynn. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Motherwell are fighting relegation as well. To be honest,
They've been scraping it for years, to be fair.
yeah,
And they always seem to just avoid it.
I'd like to see Falkirk come up, have a decent season, and see Motherwell be the ones kind of fighting it out with Dundee. To be honest, I mean Livy don't bring a lot to the table, but you know at least it's nice having two teams go down and two teams come up instead of the playoffs.
To be fair, I think I'm kind of the opposite to you. I've got a weird feeling that Livy are going to do better than Falkirk. I just think Falkirk haven't really done that much business. It sort of said to me, they're going to stay up. Obviously, I know they walked the championship. They're flying down there, but I don't know, something about Livy. I just feel like they're going to do better this season. And I think Falkirk
I think Falkirk struggled a bit at the end of the season, didn't they? They were running away with it, and then they kept kind of blowing it. And obviously, Livingston have got Martindale, who's got a lot of experience in the Premier. I think it's partly wishful thinking. I would just rather, Falkirk haven't been up for years, whereas Livy, it's just it's a bit dull when they're in the league. So, I mean, my bottom four would be Dundee, Livingston, Falkirk, and Motherwell. And I think any of them could go down, to be honest.
Falkirk, I mean, they've kind of got the old guard of Scott Arfield. They've also brought in Brian Graham, who's a bit of a Partick Thistle legend, scored 75 goals with them. It's fair to say youth isn't on their side for these players, but they're those kind of guys who I think part of the reason that McGlynn's brought them in, well, obviously already had Arfield in last season, but Brian Graham as well, it's just they're the kind of characters you really want when you're down in amongst it, and you can pass on the advice and encourage the young players. I think, whilst they're not signings that are going to set the heather alight, I think they're very sensible ones from McGlynn, considering their budget as well.
Yeah, and I think he's not like a new signing this season, but then you've got like Livingston, have got Ryan McGowan, I think he's now captain. Kind of similar in the sense that they've got a guy who's obviously played, he's got a lot of experience. So maybe that's the way both teams are kind of thinking, have a couple of older heads like that.
They've both got players from us on loan as well, obviously, in Lewis Nielsen, Macaulay Tate.
I'm looking forward to Ryan McGowan coming back and getting a big applause from the Hearts fans as well, because I know Jamie likes to applaud our former players, especially cup winning legends.
My theory is you should never applaud or cheer anyone that isn't playing in maroon at Tynecastle, and I stand by that.
Even if they won 5-1 in the cup final in the biggest derby in history.
I will die on that hill, Adam. I will die on it.
I'm gonna be like jumping up and down celebrating when we he'll need to come off as a sub, I guess. He'll be starting the game, but I'll be running down to the front to celebrate McGowan coming off. Well, actually, if we're winning. But
who's it you were giving pretty much a standing ovation to the other? Was it Uche?
But when you say me, you mean about 1,000 Hearts fans.
In fairness, I think we went a bit over the top because you'd mentioned that you thought it was a bit daft.
Yeah, Jamie's
Cheers,
mentioned it once or twice, and isn't the biggest fan. So maybe we can spread on the word on Twitter to applaud as loudly as possible for like Jason Holt and these kind of players, because
all these legends, yeah. So silverware, Adam. What are you thinking?
Well, it's going to sound boring now, but I was going to go for the League Cup win as well. I think something about McInnes, like John mentioned, the way we have approached the first 4 games in the League Cup and just hammered every single team. Can't remember the last time we'd have done that. I think it's about time, isn't it? I mean, there's so many awful semi-final defeats in the League Cup. There's a St Mirren Women Cup final defeat as well. I just think what you have as an advantage in the League Cup, what we have as an advantage is we don't have Europe as a distraction. You've got the top 5 from last season in Europe. Obviously, a couple of them are probably going to go out soon. But we don't have any distractions like that. McInnes has taken it really seriously, because part of the problem in the past has been guys playing weakened teams. But we're taking it ultra seriously. We don't have Europe. I think this is our best chance for a while to win it, and imagine McInnes wins it, first half of his first season in charge.
See, if we win the League Cup and Motherwell get relegated, I think the apocalypse will be next. The world will end.
It's been about 40 years or something for Motherwell, which is absolutely ridiculous. Although they did,
Yeah.
Motherwell stayed up once because of women was it reconstruction or something?
Something like that,
Or
yeah.
Falkirk. Remember when Falkirk used to get denied promotion every season for?
Yeah.
No. But yeah, I remember Motherwell got bottom once or something. But yeah, I think this is the year. I'm going League Cup win, Scottish Cup semis is my prediction.
Scottish Cup semis as well. Fine.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
is
not
it
too greedy and say a double, but
Pulis St Johnson? it is a tough draw we have got. We were drawn against him. It's actually the toughest draw I think we probably could have got, to be honest, against St Mirren, but it's the old cliche, you're going to have to beat these teams if you want to win it. I'll tell you what, if we do win that, I might rescind my prediction, but I think we'll maybe get to a quarter final of the League Cup. I just have so little confidence in the League Cup after too many years of heartbreak. I'll say the Scottish Cup final. I'm not, and then if we win it from there, brilliant. But I do think we'll get to the final. So the next one is signing of the season. Who's it going to be for you, Adam?
I'm going to go for McEntee. I just think he fits in with what McInnes wants. And, I think there'll be more spectacular kind of players like Braga, Kizaridis, hopefully, Kabari, that kind of player. I think there'll be more kind of flair players scoring more goals. But I think McEntee will be the heart of the team. And, yeah, I'm going to go for him.
What about yourself, John? Who are you going to go for?
I had two names down. So similar to what Adam was saying there, there's other players who maybe will be more sort of flair players. But I actually think I'm going to go with Braga. He was my main one. I just think there's something about him. He just looks so determined to do well. And I'll also put Finlay as well because I just think he's going to be really solid. I mean, sort of 7 out of 10 every week. Might go under the radar a little bit, but I think he'll be massive at the back.
And I think Finley's similar to McEntee in that kind of not going to get lots of goals, obviously, that kind of thing. Maybe less exciting, but do a very good job.
My thinking is similar to yourselves in that regard. The temptation is to go for, your flair player like Braga, who I think is going to score us a lot of goals, and Kizaridis, I think, is also going to score a lot of goals, but also create some great chances. I just think a player like McEntee is one that will, still produce a performance on those cold, rainy nights on Livy and be able to do it in every situation. And he just offers, I think he's going to really offer so many different options. He can play a ball in pretty well, but he can also tackle. He's got a lot to his game. And I think that's kind of what rises him above the other ones in my sort of mind for signing of a season. However, I'm going to go for, on July the 3rd, we signed a free agent known as Lawrence Shankland. I'm expecting some backlash here, guys.
Technically, you're not wrong. So
I've heard other podcasts, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've heard other podcasts mention Shankland as well, but like, yeah, it's not a new signing for me.
It's a cop-out answer, I'll admit. So, moving on then, our most improved player under McInnes. Who's it going to be? Adam.
I'm not sure this really counts, but I'm thinking Halkett in the sense that I think he's always been a decent player for us, but I think there was a point with all the injuries. There was a point last year where you just felt like maybe he's going to move on at one point. And I think he's going to have a great season, be back to his best. So yeah, I'm going for Halkett.
What about yourself, John?
again, I've put two down. Mm-hmm. So firstly, I've gone for Milne. I know obviously it wasn't exactly. He only played 2 games last season, 3. But I just think, I think he's really going to show that we don't really miss Penrice, and he could almost do the same thing as Penrice, have a great season and be off.
I think that choice is similar to my Shankland one, to be perfectly honest, and I'm going to demand you provide us with another one.
I've got to say, Milne was on my list as well.
Right, well, I feel a lot less guilty about Shankland now.
I was gonna say Milne, and I was like, but he barely played, so can he really be improved? So I ended up going for a different player, but yeah.
Well, I do have another one that's maybe a bit more interesting. I put Spittle, just purely because I think he was very inconsistent last season. Like, he did look really good at points. I'm just wondering, could McInnes get him playing like that consistently? That's my hope. Anyway,
do you think Spittle will be a regular starter?
It's tough to say. I think it depends on how we set up, and obviously, I don't think he'll start to begin with. But I feel like he can maybe work his way back into the team. I think he should start as, if I'm being honest.
That's a good shout, though. I think it's a potential improvement, and I'm guessing Jamie's going to go for Shankland. Make it a double.
It is tempting, but I'm not going to do that because, again, that just seems too obvious. And I don't know how much. Well, obviously, you can say McInnes is a big reason Shankland is actually with us at all this season, but I do think Shankland's form is also, as I touched on earlier, due to the players around him. I'm going to go for Nieuwenhof because he was injured a fair bit last season, but he's available for selection from around January onwards, and he just never really got a look in. I've really liked what I've seen from him. He wasn't playing in the closed door game today because I think there's been a hamstring issue. However, McInnes doesn't seem too concerned by it. I hope it's not. Obviously, he had a huge spell on the sidelines. But from what I've seen, if he can get playing again, then I do think McInnes is going to get the best out of him. He is my choice for most improved under McInnes.
I think what's really hard is, I agree with Nieuwenhof. What's really hard to predict at the moment is what our midfield is even going to look like. But I think Nieuwenhof is a good shout, and I'd be really happy if he ended up getting to play a bit. It's just so hard to predict right now who's even going to play.
What do you think about Devlin under McInnes? 'Cause I think he's played quite well actually, so far under McInnes.
If he stays, I think he'll be phenomenal this season. I really do. I think he showed. I did say this under Critchley. He kind of showed flares when Critchley first came in of that ability to get forward, but he really looks. He's refined that a bit. Yeah, I think he's going to become a phenomenal player this season if he continues on the same level that he's at.
The worry with Devlin is that release clause apparently is not very high. I was listening to Scarbs Around the Funnel the other day, and Barry Anderson mentioned it, and I'd actually kind of forgotten about it because it kind of came up a few months ago. So I think if we can hang on to him, I think he's only got 1 year. Is he in his last? Yeah, he's got 1 year left on his contract as well. He could be signing on the season maybe if he signs a new deal. But no, I think we just holding on to him. I think he could have a really good season as well.
Let's move on to the final one here, which is the wild card prediction. I'm coming to you first, John. What is your wild card prediction for the season ahead?
My prediction is that Braga will be in the top 3 goal scorers in the league.
Do you think that'll be behind Shankland and Kizaridis then, yeah?
Yeah, I think he can get close to them.
What about yourself, Adam? What's your wild card prediction?
I'm going for Jan Danda, top goal scorer this season.
Right, okay.
No, actually, sorry, I need to think of one. I couldn't think of one earlier.
I could come up with mine whilst you have a wee think if you like.
All right, okay.
So, my wild card prediction is we will beat Rangers at Ibrox this season. McInnes has a history of upsetting the old firm, and I think this is a season where we finally managed to get a victory again at Ibrox. I mean, a victory against Rangers would be nice in general, to be honest, but at Ibrox would be all the bit sweeter. You've had your time, Adam. What are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for something related to derbies. I was going to say 104, but that sounds a bit ridiculous. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go for we win each derby this season. This is after having predicted Hibs in 4th as well, which is a bit ridiculous. But yeah, there we go. McInnes is going to get us up for it. We're going to win every derby this year.
So we're winning the League Cup, winning every derby, beating Rangers at Ibrox. Even if all that happened, us Jamboos would still find something to complain about, to be honest. But yes, we'll take it if it comes.
I've got a question for you both, actually.
Go for it.
How many games do you think it'll be before Devlin gets his first booking?
20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Aberdeen game is going to be a fiery one with plenty of yellow cards in it, and I would not be surprised to see Devlin in amongst those yellow cards.
Yeah, he's got a Devlin yellow card written all over it, the Aberdeen game, I'd say. What about you, John?
Yeah, 100%. First tackle. I'd honestly give him about 5 minutes. It'll be the first tackle he makes. He'll put his hands up saying he did nothing, but he'll have done something.
This is definitely not a wildcard prediction. Devlin getting booked.
This is put your mortgage on it prediction. So last week, John, we covered the transfers and thought about maybe what we'd still expect to come in. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about what we still need in the team. We do have a couple of players coming in. I'm going to say this every week, I feel, but we do expect to get Kabori in at some point this week. We got Kyrgiota in. Whether he'll play in the Aberdeen game is a different matter, but we do have him in the door. The other one that is looking possible is Thomas Magnusson, Icelandic player, apparently a bit Peter Haring-esque, hairband and all. So if we get in someone like that, that's another midfielder, potentially defensive midfielder. That to me implies we're looking to offload one of our at least defensive midfielders. I think it might be Benny because he's the one that you could expect us to get decent money from. Who do you think is going to go then, John? And who would you like to, well, not who would you like to come in, it's so hard to predict with Jamestown, but what kind of player would you still like to come in for us?
On the midfield, I think you're right with Benny. I think he's probably the most valuable asset we've got there. But as we mentioned before, obviously with Devlin having that release clause, there's nothing to rule out that's him. He could potentially go as well. Yeah, I think it's interesting, this Magnuson guy. Watched a few of his clips and he looks kind of similar to how McEntee's been playing, quite, box to box, maybe a bit stronger defensively. As far as what we need, I still think we need cover for both right and left back. Maybe someone who can do both. I'm not overly convinced about Kingsley being the backup to Milne. Just think he's maybe, lacking for the pace nowadays. I mean, technically, definitely still got it, but yeah, not completely convinced. And obviously on the other side, yeah, Forrest has played decent, but I don't think he's quite at the right level yet. And Borsche obviously seems to be a bit injury prone as well. So yeah, I think just someone else to cover there would be ideal.
You missed last week when we were all absolutely singing Kingsley's praises and full of we're never going to need anyone else in there with both him and Milne to choose from. But who do you think should come in then, Adam, or what would you like to see come in position-wise?
I think the main one's still a right back because I think Forrester, has shown that he can play really well, but I think Forrester would benefit from maybe just having a season out on loan at a lower Premier team and then fighting for his position next season. It's hard to really say a lot. Obviously we know we're bringing in Magnuson and Kabori. It's hard to really predict many more than that because, that will take us up to, I think, we're at about 9 signings once you get those next two in. So I think right back is the main one. I think we've done pretty well so far. I almost feel like another striker as a backup because I'm not convinced by maybe how Kabangu will do, but I don't think that's very particularly likely. But I wouldn't mind having another striking option as well.
Striker-wise, we've got Shankland, obviously, Braga, and we've got Wilson and Kabangu. So the new guy coming in at some point this year, hopefully, Kabori, he can play sort of as a striker role, but John, he can also play on the wing, is that right?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen so far, it looks like he predominantly has played on the wing, but he seems to be quite sort of like an inside forward. Like he'll drift in a lot. He doesn't stick particularly to the touchline. So I think he'll be quite different from Chesnikov when he comes in, for example. He's going to be more out and out winger.
This Monday then, 4th of August, is when our league campaign starts, and it'll be at home against Aberdeen. It's a blockbuster tie. It'll be under the lights at Tynecastle. How are we feeling about this then?
Buzzing, to be honest. I'm just looking forward to, do you know what, not even just the start of the season, but under the lights at Tiny. By far my favourite games are under the lights. It's just, there's something about it. The atmosphere is always better.
It feels almost like a European tie every time it's under the lights, I feel. And this, for me already, even though the league campaign hasn't started, it feels such an important game because it really could shape how the temperature around Tynecastle is if we're still able to maintain that winning feeling. It's funny because I put this on our socials the other day, as on our X account, Hearts and Sleeves podcast, if you don't follow it. I was saying that I've never felt more confident about us playing Aberdeen. Therefore, I've never felt less confident about us playing Aberdeen. How are you feeling about the upcoming game, Adam?
Oh, just absolutely buzzing. I mean, after last season, when I said it was the most optimistic I'd felt for years, I kept saying this season I'm gonna keep my optimism low, but it's getting it's getting increasingly difficult. I think it's the perfect start at home to Aberdeen. You know, Derek McInnes in charge against his former team. Yeah, I think it's just really exciting going into this game. And then we've got the Tony Bloom event the day before. There's just it's going to be hopefully going to be a great couple of days.
There is such a feeling of optimism. I guess my concern is if we all of a sudden have a bad game against Aberdeen for whatever reason, there's just going to be that bubble will be burst a wee bit. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
And
I agree. It's just thankfully, football fans are, quite balanced, and if we don't win, it won't be us getting relegated. But no, I agree. It's almost worrying when you feel such a level of positivity because you feel like anything might take away from that. But I also think if we were to say draw the game, I think there is enough positivity and optimism around the club that I don't think one result at the moment will totally kind of wipe out the good feeling. So I do think we'll win, but I think McInnes has got enough in the bank that it's not all or nothing on this one game, whereas sometimes in the past it has been.
I kind of agree with what you're saying as well. I think the way we play the game will be a big factor. I don't see us, if we were to lose it, I don't see it being, we've been dominated, we've struggled, there's no fight. I think McInnes will really have us up for it.
That's a great point. I think if we go out fighting like we did against Sunderland and we get a draw, but it's been like an absolutely brilliant, well fought draw, then that can maintain the positivity. So I think the performance can salvage the positive feeling even if we don't win.
This is a particularly difficult one to predict as far as lineup goes. I suppose my expectation is probably going to be something similar to Sunderland, particularly because I'm not convinced Borch Krevenink will make this game, to be honest. It doesn't sound like he'll have recovered in time. It's hard to say just yet, because there is obviously still a few days. If he isn't match fit, then it probably will be Forrester starting on the right, which means I don't see McInnes probably doing a 4-4-2 with him in there. I think he might just play a bit safer by having the three at the back to protect him. What are people thinking about lineup? And obviously, you don't have to predict each and every position, but key players and general formations. What are your feelings, John, about this lineup? I mean, I don't know if you've got a full expected lineup, but even just key players and perhaps a formation you expect to see us play against Aberdeen, who'd you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be very similar to the Sunderland game. I feel like we'll go with that. Sort of defensively, it'll be like a 5-3-2. Maybe going forward, we're looking at like a 3-5-2. I think it's got to be Clark for me that will start in goals. I feel like you probably both agree with me on that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
Back five: Forrester, Halkett, Kent, Finlay, Milne. Again, I think that's our best defensive lineup anyway, apart from maybe Forrester. Midfield, I don't know if Pop will start with the injury, so I think he might play it a little bit safer and go McEntee, Devlin, maybe Spittle, just purely because he's played before, obviously last season. I think this is probably the easiest bit for me is Shankland and Braga. I think that'll be our starting two.
I think I agree with that. I think the only one that I think the main doubt from it is if Spittle will start. I think it will be obviously Clark in goals. I think it'll be the back five, which with Borshout injured, it kind of picks itself. Braga and Shankland as well, obvious. So I think Spittle's the main question mark for me at the moment. That's the one main position
Yeah.
I'm not sure about for Aberdeen.
It's purely just going off like Benny being injured. Don't think he'll start. Hoff being injured. I'm trying to think, who would you put alongside him?
Agreed, and I think we've learned so unfortunately when Benny goes out injured, it can sometimes take a little bit longer than expected. So I'd expect Neuenhoff and Benny to both be out. So yeah, there might not be. I guess because Spittle, has played. He has had a few games already this season, so might well be him that plays. Yeah,
I can't see Magnuson getting chucked in either. So that's just a guess. Obviously, it could all change, but that's what I would say for the moment.
I can't really think who else could be if he did go with that formation instead of Spittle. I suppose Khartoum is one option, but I don't see that, to be honest. You never know, but my gut feeling is he's going to be on the way out sooner rather than later, so he's unlikely to start him. Tizoridis, do you think he's going to be an impact player then, rather than starting?
I think to begin with, I think, especially while, I feel like we'll maybe be playing this formation for a couple of weeks. I think maybe, say Bosch comes back, maybe drop back to going forward at the back, a bit more attacking. You'll maybe see, Kiziridis and, someone on the other side, whoever it may be.
What about Kabori then? You said he can play in the wings. Could he play in a position like that then, behind the two strikers? Do you think there's any possibility he might make an appearance? And if so, where would you expect to see him?
I'm not. I mean, I've watched a wee bit, and it looks to me that he's more of sort of a winger / striker. I'm not sure. I mean, it looks like he's got a good finish, but technically, I'm not sure how good he'd be playing. Just in behind the strikers.
Okay, does anyone fancy doing a score prediction for this game then?
I said 3-0 to Sunderland at the weekend, so I'll say 3-0 Aberdeen, then it'll be 3-0 us.
I like that thinking. And what about yourself, Adam? And who's going to score as well?
I'm gonna go for 2-0 Hearts. Do you want both goal scorers?
I'll settle for one.
2-0 Hearts and Braga.
Excellent. I'm going to go for 2-0 Hearts, and I think Finlay is going to score from a corner. Now, you can always reach out to us at Hearts on Sleeves by emailing us at heartsonsleevespodcast@outlook.com. We've also got our socials. We're on Blue Sky at Hearts on Sleeves Pod, and you can find us on X, as I mentioned earlier, and that's Hearts on Sleeves Podcast there. We're also hoping to get our YouTube channel up and running this week. It will just be podcasts on there. We We might try and branch out and do different things on there at some point, but initially we're just going to have our podcasts up on there. I'm hoping I've spoken with a listener to the show, and I'm hoping to meet up with him at some point and have him on the show and just talk a bit about his experience and how Hearts have helped him overcome a really difficult period in his life. If you'd like to join in any conversations or come on the show and talk about something like that, or any issues you've faced perhaps, and how Hearts or people connected to Hearts have helped you through that, it would be great to have you on there. So I do encourage you to email us at heartsonsleevespodcast@outlook.com if that is yourself, or just contact us through one of those socials. We'll be back next week, hopefully keeping that good mood going with a victory over Aberdeen. Enjoy the game when it comes, folks, and we'll see you then. Cheers.